Rachel Foster watched through the observation window as the alien delegation approached. Their movements were quick and nervous, like rabbits sensing danger. She found it strange how they kept their distance from each other, never quite touching, always maintaining escape routes. These were the Quarians, and they represented the Galactic Coalition that humanity had been trying to contact for 3 years. The meeting room had been prepared according to their specifications. Soft lighting, multiple exits, rounded furniture with no sharp edges. Rachel had found the requests odd but followed them anyway. Now, seeing the aliens in person, she understood. Every single one of them had eyes on the sides of their heads. Wide-set, prey eyes. Ambassador Tillin was the first to speak. His voice came through the translator as high-pitched and rapid. "We welcome humanity to this historic moment. Please forgive our caution. Your appearance is somewhat alarming to us." Rachel smiled, trying to appear friendly. Several Quarians flinched. She stopped smiling immediately. Commander David Park, standing beside her, noticed the reaction. He made a note on his datapad without looking down at it. His eyes never left the aliens. Rachel saw Tillin's gaze dart to David's face, then away quickly. The ambassador's ears flattened against his head. "We mean no harm," Rachel said carefully. "We come in peace and hope to learn from you." Yes, we detected that from your initial broadcasts," Tillin replied. His translator device struggled with the speed of his words. "However, we must discuss certain biological concerns. Your species displays several characteristics that are quite disturbing to Coalition members." Rachel glanced at David. He gave a small nod, encouraging her to continue. "What concerns do you have?" she asked. Tillin tapped on a holographic display. Images of human faces appeared, rotating slowly. "Your eyes. They face forward, both of them. This is a predatory trait. In all 47 species of the Coalition, such eye placement exists only in extinct carnivorous animals. Animals that hunted our ancestors. Humans evolved as omnivores," Rachel explained. "We eat both plants and meat. But we've moved beyond our primitive nature. We build cities, create art, form governments. We're civilized." "Civilized," Tillin repeated the word slowly. "Yes, we've observed this in your broadcasts. You show remarkable cooperation. You form what you call families and friendships. You protect your weak and care for your sick. This is very unusual behavior for a species with your physical characteristics." David finally spoke. "You're saying we look like predators but don't act like them." "Precisely." Tillin's ears perked up slightly. "This is why the High Chancellor has agreed to this meeting. You are an anomaly, a predator species that developed empathy and social bonds. It should not be possible, yet here you stand." Rachel felt a small surge of pride. "Then humanity can join the Coalition?" "That remains to be determined," a new voice said. High Chancellor Breen entered the room and Rachel's breath caught. The Chancellor was bird-like, with brilliant blue feathers and large golden eyes. He moved with quick, precise steps. Behind him came a dozen other aliens, each one different from the last. Some looked like insects, others like various earth animals she recognized. Deer, rabbits, small birds, all prey species. "You must understand our hesitation," Breen continued. "In 12,000 years of space exploration, we have never encountered an intelligent predator species. Every civilization in the Coalition evolved from prey animals. We built our society on cooperation, mutual protection, and peaceful coexistence. Violence is foreign to us." "Humans can be violent," David admitted, "but we've learned to control it. We have laws, ethics, moral codes. We only use force when necessary to protect ourselves or others." "Protection," Breen cocked his head sideways. "An interesting concept. Who do you protect?" "Our families, our friends, our communities," Rachel answered. "Anyone who needs help, even strangers? Even those different from yourselves?" "Yes." The Chancellor's feathers ruffled. "Fascinating. This protective instinct, does it extend to other species?" Rachel thought about Earth's history with animals. How humans had driven some to extinction but fought desperately to save others. How people adopted pets and treated them like family. How wildlife sanctuaries existed on every continent. "Yes, it does." "Then perhaps," Breen said slowly, "there is hope for integration. But we must conduct extensive studies. We need to understand what makes your species capable of both predation and compassion. Counselor Vin will oversee the research." A mantis-like alien stepped forward. Vin's triangular head swiveled to examine Rachel and David with enormous compound eyes. "We will need human volunteers for psychological and biological analysis." "Nothing invasive, I assure you. Merely observations and interviews. Agreed, Rachel said quickly. This was better than she had hoped. Over the following weeks, human diplomats and scientists arrived at Coalition Central Station. The structure itself was enormous, a city in space housing millions of alien citizens. Humans found themselves the subject of constant curiosity and barely concealed fear. Aliens would scatter when humans approached too quickly. They misunderstood human gestures and expressions regularly. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a behavioral psychologist, began documenting the interactions. She noticed patterns. Humans naturally walked with purpose, moving directly toward their goals. Aliens found this threatening, interpreting it as stalking behavior. When humans made eye contact to show respect, aliens saw it as a predatory stare. Human smiles meant to convey friendliness displayed teeth and triggered panic responses. "We're not communicating," Yuki told Rachel during one of their evening discussions. "We think we're being friendly, but they're reading completely different signals. Can we change how we behave?" Rachel asked. "We're trying. Humans are adapting, moving slower, avoiding direct eye contact, keeping our teeth covered. But it's exhausting. It goes against every social instinct we have." Rachel had noticed the same thing. After a full day of careful movements and controlled expressions, she felt drained. Other humans reported similar fatigue. They were constantly monitoring themselves, suppressing natural behaviors that might frighten their hosts. Still, progress was being made. Trade agreements were drafted. Cultural exchanges were planned. 3 planets suitable for human colonization had been identified. The coalition was slowly accepting that humanity, despite its predatory heritage, could be trusted. Councillor Vin presented his findings to the High Chancellor after 6 months of study. Humans exhibit pack-bonding behavior, he explained. They form tight social groups and show fierce loyalty to those groups. They use what they call teamwork, coordinating their actions toward common goals. This is actually quite similar to how predators hunt in groups, but humans have redirected this instinct toward cooperative building and problem-solving. "And the protective instinct?" Breen asked. "Genuine, as far as we can determine. Humans seem to extend their pack bonding to other species. They've already begun forming friendships with coalition members. They bring gifts, offer help without being asked, and show concern for alien well-being. It's quite remarkable." Breen considered this. "Then I will recommend full membership status pending a probationary period. Let us see if humanity can truly walk among us as friends rather than hunters." The announcement was made. Humanity had been accepted into the Galactic Coalition. Rachel felt tears of relief and joy. They had done it. Against all odds, a predator species had convinced a galaxy of prey that they could be trusted. She had no way of knowing that in 6 months that trust would be tested in ways none of them could imagine. Lieutenant Grace Howard leaned against the observation deck railing, watching the sun set over New Terra's capital city. 6 months had passed since the colony's founding, and the place was thriving. Human buildings stood alongside Quarian structures, and the streets below bustled with mixed crowds. Children from both species played in the parks, though always under careful supervision. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Councillor Vin approached from behind, his insectoid legs clicking softly on the metal floor. Grace no longer flinched at the sound. She had grown used to the mantis-like alien during their weekly security briefings. "It is," Grace agreed. "Never thought I'd see humans and aliens living side by side like this." "Your species has adapted remarkably well," Vin observed. "Better than we anticipated, honestly. The psychological reports suggested humans might struggle with the constant self-monitoring required to avoid triggering fear responses." Grace shrugged. "We're getting better at it. Learning to move differently, speak softer, smile less. It's becoming second nature." "That's what concerns Dr. Tanaka," Vin said quietly. "She believes humans are suppressing fundamental aspects of their psychology. The stress hormones in your blood work have been elevated across all colony populations." "We're fine," Grace insisted, though she knew it was partially a lie. Every human on New Terra felt it. The constant caution, the careful control, the perpetual awareness of how every gesture might be interpreted. It was like walking on eggshells every moment of every day. But it was worth it for peace. Finn's head tilted. "If you say so. However, I wonder what happens when suppressed instincts are suddenly needed." Before Grace could respond, an alarm echoed across the colony. Not the regular alerts they used for drills. This was different. Urgent. Real. Grace's body reacted before her mind fully processed the sound. Her heart rate increased. Her pupils dilated slightly. Her muscles tensed, ready for action. Then she caught herself, forced her breathing to slow, made herself relax. Control, always control. What's happening? Vin asked, his voice rising in pitch. Grace tapped her communicator. Howard to Central Command. Status report. The response crackled with static and background noise. Unknown vessels approaching the system. They're not responding to hails. Military configuration. Recommend immediate defensive protocols. Grace's training kicked in. Evacuate all civilians to the shelters. Lock down government buildings. Prepare defensive positions. She looked at Vin. Get to the Coalition embassy. You'll be safe there. What about you? Vin asked. I have a job to do. The next hours passed in organized chaos. Alien civilians panicked, their prey instincts overwhelming rational thought. Humans moved through the crowds, calm and purposeful, guiding the frightened aliens to safety. Grace noticed how naturally it came to them, protecting, organizing, taking charge in crisis situations. The unknown ships entered orbit. They were massive, built for war, covered in weapons. A message broadcast across all channels in a harsh, grating language that the translator struggled to interpret. Surrender your resources. Evacuate your worlds. Resistance will be met with extermination. You have one planetary rotation to comply. We are the Draviks, and this space now belongs to us. High Chancellor Breen called an emergency session of the Coalition Council. Captain Ryan Walsh represented humanity in the meeting, attending via holographic projection from his ship, the Horizon. We must negotiate, Breen said immediately. Violence serves no one. We can find a peaceful solution. With respect, Chancellor, I don't think they're interested in negotiation, Ryan replied. His voice was steady, but Grace, watching the feed from New Terra, saw something in his eyes. A sharpness. An intensity. These are conquerors. They're using fear as a weapon. Then we will evacuate, Breen decided. Pull back our population, cede territory, wait for them to move on. Survival is more important than planets. And if they don't move on? Ryan asked. If they follow you? If they decide to hunt you across the galaxy? The word hunt sent visible ripples of fear through the alien council members. What do you suggest, Captain? Counselor Vin asked. Ryan was quiet for a moment. Humans have experience with this kind of aggression. Throughout our history, we've faced enemies who wanted to dominate or destroy us. We learned to fight back, to defend what's ours, to protect those who can't protect themselves. You're suggesting war, Breen said, his feathers flattening in distress. I'm suggesting we at least show them we're not easy prey. A strong defense might convince them to look elsewhere for victims. Prey. Breen repeated the word bitterly. Is that what you think we are, Captain? Prey? I think you're civilized species who've never had to face uncivilized aggression, Ryan said carefully. And I think humans remember how to deal with predators. The council rejected Ryan's advice. They chose retreat. Evacuation orders went out to all border colonies, including New Terra. Grace received her orders and immediately began organizing the withdrawal. Thousands of aliens needed transport off-planet within 20 hours. It was barely enough time. Humans worked alongside coalition security forces, loading ships, calming terrified civilians, maintaining order. Dr. Yuki Tanaka helped coordinate the medical evacuation. She moved through the crowded spaceport, checking on injured aliens, comforting children separated from parents. A small Quarian child clutched at her leg, crying. Yuki picked her up without thinking, cradling the alien youngster against her chest, whispering soothing words. A human soldier nearby saw it and smiled. Not the careful, closed-mouth smile they had learned to use around aliens, but a genuine expression of warmth. Several other humans saw the exchange and felt something stir in their chests. Pride, affection, protective instinct. They were saving their friends. As the last evacuation ships prepared to launch, long-range sensors detected something new. A smaller Dravix force was approaching New Terra directly. They would arrive before the evacuation finished. 4,000 aliens were still on the planet, along with 300 humans who had volunteered to stay behind and help. Grace made a decision. All human personnel, this is Lieutenant Howard. Change of plans. We're not leaving. We're going to hold this position until every alien civilian is safely away. Prepare defensive positions around Shelter Complex 7. That's where most of the civilians are gathered. Grace. Ryan's voice came through her communicator. "You don't have the firepower to hold against a Dravix assault force." "Then we'll improvise," Grace said. "We're good at that. I'm sending reinforcements, no time. They'll be here in 90 minutes. Just make sure those evacuation ships get away safely." Grace cut the connection and turned to her team. 250 human soldiers and security officers looked back at her. Some were trained military. Others were colonists who had volunteered. All of them wore the same expression: determined, ready. "Listen up," Grace said. "We've spent 6 months learning to be gentle, learning to move slow and speak soft and never show our teeth. Today we protect 4,000 innocent lives from something that wants to hurt them. Today we remember what humans do best. We defend our pack." A murmur of agreement rippled through the group. Grace felt it too. Something shifting inside, some careful control loosening, 6 months of suppression beginning to crack. The Dravix ships landed on the outskirts of the city. Hundreds of armored soldiers emerged, heavily armed and organized. They moved toward the civilian shelter with clear hostile intent. Grace and her team waited. They had prepared the ground, set traps, created choke points. They used human tactics, human thinking, ambush points, crossfire zones, environmental advantages. When the Dravix entered the city, they expected frightened prey species. Instead, they found humans. The first Dravix squad disappeared into an ambush, eliminated in seconds by precise coordinated fire from positions they never saw coming. The second squad tried to advance through a narrow street. Humans had rigged the buildings to collapse, burying the enemy under rubble. The third squad finally reached the shelter entrance. Grace and 20 soldiers defended the doorway. Behind them, they could hear the frightened breathing of 4,000 alien civilians huddled in the dark. A Dravix commander stepped forward, larger than the others, covered in battle scars. He spoke in broken coalition common. "Move aside, human. This does not concern your kind." "These are my friends," Grace said. Her voice was different now, lower, calmer. "You're not touching them." The Dravix laughed. "Prey cannot have predator friends. Watch me prove you wrong. What happened next would be studied by xenobiologists for years." Grace felt something change inside her body. Her heartbeat shifted, becoming slower but stronger. Her vision sharpened, details jumping into crystal clarity. The Dravix commander's armor had a weak point at the neck joint. His soldiers were standing too close together, making them vulnerable to explosive scatter. The environmental sounds faded into background noise, leaving only tactical information. Time seemed to slow down. She moved before the Dravix could react. 3 shots, 3 soldiers down. Her team followed her lead instantly, moving with synchronized precision they had never displayed before. It wasn't planned. It wasn't rehearsed. It was instinctive. The Dravix commander roared and charged. Grace sidestepped, used his momentum against him, sent him crashing into the wall. While he was stunned, she disarmed him and disabled his armor's power core. 15 seconds. That's all it took. The remaining Dravix soldiers retreated, dragging their commander with them. Grace and her team didn't pursue. They held their position, protecting the shelter entrance. Inside the shelter, Counselor Vin had watched everything through the security cameras. His compound eyes were fixed on the screen showing Grace. She stood in the doorway, weapon ready, completely still, waiting. Her face showed no emotion. No fear, no anger, no excitement. Just focus. What is she? A Quarian civilian whispered beside him. Vin didn't have an answer. The Dravix regrouped and attacked again. This time they came in greater numbers with heavier weapons. Grace and her team adapted. They moved like water, flowing between positions, never where the enemy expected. They used the urban environment like it was an extension of their own bodies. Every corner, every shadow, every angle became a weapon. Human casualties were remarkably light. Dravix casualties were not. After the third failed assault, the Dravix withdrew to their ships. They launched one final attack from orbit, targeting the shelter with their weapons. Grace saw the energy build up on her tactical display. "Everyone down!" she shouted into the shelter. 4,000 aliens and 300 humans hit the floor as the ceiling exploded above them. Debris rained down. Dust filled the air. The lights went out in the darkness. Grace heard crying. Children screaming. Adults calling for help. Her mind cleared of everything except one thought: protect them. She and her team worked through the night, pulling aliens from rubble, treating injuries, maintaining calm. The predatory focus remained, but now directed toward saving lives. calculating the most efficient rescue patterns, prioritizing the wounded, managing limited resources. By dawn, when coalition reinforcements finally arrived, all 4,000 aliens were accounted for. Injured, traumatized, but alive. Captain Ryan was among the first to reach the surface. He found Grace sitting against a broken wall, covered in dust and blood, most of it not her own. Her hands were shaking slightly. Her eyes stared at nothing. "Grace?" he said softly. She blinked, focused on him. "Captain." "Good to see you. What happened here?" "We held them off," Grace said simply. "Like we said we would." Ryan looked around at the battlefield. Dravik's bodies lay scattered among the ruins. The evidence of tactical ambushes and coordinated defensive actions was everywhere. "Grace, how did you do this? There were hundreds of them and only 300 of you." "I don't know," Grace said honestly. "Something just clicked. Like my brain shifted into a different mode. Everything became clear. I knew exactly what to do, exactly how to move. The whole team felt it." Dr. Yuki arrived shortly after, rushing to check on the human survivors. She found them all in similar states. Exhausted, shaken, but with an odd calmness underneath. When she ran medical scans, the results confused her. "Your neurological patterns are different," she told Grace during the examination. "There's increased activity in your brain's tactical centers. Enhanced sensory processing. Your body is still producing adrenaline, but it's being regulated differently. More controlled. More focused. Is that bad?" Grace asked. "I don't know yet," Yuki admitted, "but I've seen this before. In historical records, ancient humans called it different things. Flow state, battle trance, being in the zone. Your ancestors experienced this during hunting or combat. We thought modern humans had evolved past it." "Apparently not," Grace said quietly. The footage of the battle spread through the coalition networks within hours. The reactions were mixed and intense. Some aliens expressed gratitude and admiration. Others felt fear and called for immediate human expulsion from the coalition. Many simply didn't understand what they had witnessed. The High Chancellor convened an emergency council meeting. This time it wasn't holographic. Every member attended in person, including representatives from species who had never met humans before. Rachel Foster stood before the assembly, knowing humanity's place in the coalition hung in the balance. "We did what we thought was right. We protected innocent lives. You slaughtered," one representative said. "We saw the recordings. Those humans moved like killing machines." "They moved like soldiers," Rachel corrected. "Trained, disciplined soldiers defending civilians against an aggressive enemy." "But the efficiency," another representative argued. "The precision. It was predatory behavior. You activated something primitive and dangerous." Counselor Vin stood up. "I was in that shelter. I watched Lieutenant Howard and her team through the security feeds. Yes, they were efficient. Yes, they were precise, but every action they took was defensive. They never pursued fleeing enemies. They never killed unnecessarily. They held their ground and protected us. That's not predatory behavior. That's guardian behavior." "Guardian," Breen repeated. "An interesting distinction. Humans call it predator mode," Yuki said, presenting her research to the council. "But that's a misnomer. What I observed was a neurological state that combines enhanced tactical awareness with protective instinct. Human aggression in this state is directed, controlled, and proportional. They don't enter this state for hunting or personal gain. They enter it to protect others. How can we trust that?" a representative demanded. "How do we know humans won't turn this ability against us?" Ryan Walsh stepped forward. "Because of what happened after the battle, Grace and her team could have pursued the Draviks, could have taken revenge, could have eliminated every enemy soldier on that planet. Instead, they spent the entire night rescuing aliens from the rubble, treating wounds, comforting children. That's what humans do. We fight when we have to, then we heal when we can." The council debated for hours. Finally, Breen called for order. "The Draviks attacks have spread to 17 systems. Conventional coalition forces are being overwhelmed. Our defensive strategies are failing because we have no experience with aggressive warfare. We need help." "You want humans to fight your war," Rachel said carefully. "We want humans to teach us how to defend ourselves," Breen corrected. "And yes, in the immediate term, we need human forces to hold the line while we learn. If you're willing." Rachel looked at Ryan, then at Yuki, then at the holographic image of Grace still on New Terra. "We'll help," But we need to understand what we're dealing with first. This predator mode, as we're calling it, needs to be studied. We need to know how to control it, how to trigger it intentionally, and how to turn it off safely. Agreed, Yuki said. I'm requesting Lieutenant Howard as a primary research subject. With her permission, of course. On New Terra, Grace watched the council proceedings via live feed. When they asked for her participation in the study, she didn't hesitate. Whatever you need. If understanding this can help protect more people, I'm in. Over the following weeks, Coalition scientists worked alongside human researchers to map the predator mode phenomenon. They discovered it was a complex neurological state involving multiple brain systems, the amygdala activated but in a controlled way. The prefrontal cortex remained engaged, maintaining rational decision-making. Adrenaline and other hormones flooded the system but were precisely regulated. Most importantly, they found the trigger. Predator mode activated when humans perceived a threat to something they cared about. Family, friends, allies, even strangers who depended on them for protection. The strength of the emotional bond correlated directly with the intensity of the response. U-pack bond, Vin said during one research session. We've known this for months, but we didn't understand the full implications. When humans bond with someone, they're not just forming a friendship. They're adopting them into their pack, and humans will do anything to protect their pack. Grace smiled, careful to keep her teeth covered. I guess that's one way to put it. The question now, Yuki said, is whether we can train this response. Make it reliable. Turn humans into the Coalition's defense force. That's a dangerous path, Grace warned. You're talking about weaponizing human nature. I'm talking about giving good people the tools to protect innocent lives, Yuki countered. The Draviks aren't going to stop. More attacks are coming. We need to be ready. Grace looked at the data displayed around them. Combat efficiency statistics. Casualty reports. Projections of Coalition losses if the Draviks' offensive continued unchecked. The numbers were brutal. All right, she said finally. Let's do it. But we do this carefully. With oversight. With limits. We don't become monsters just to fight monsters. Agreed, Yuki said. We'll need volunteers. Humans willing to learn how to activate predator mode intentionally. To train with it. To control it. Within days, thousands of humans volunteered. Private Ben Torres sat in the training facility, watching through the observation glass as other humans practiced entering predator mode. They moved through combat scenarios with frightening efficiency, their movements coordinated and precise. Their faces showed that same empty focus Grace had displayed at New Terra. Ben felt sick watching them. You're scheduled for your first session this afternoon, the instructor said, checking her datapad. Her name was Officer Nina Grant, and she had been one of the first volunteers after Grace. Any questions before we begin? Yeah, Ben said. What if I don't want to do this? What if I don't want to become whatever that is? Nina looked at him with understanding. Then you tell me right now and we transfer you to logistics or support services. Nobody's forcing you, Ben. This is entirely voluntary. But people are dying, Ben said. The Draviks hit another colony yesterday. Killed 6,000 civilians. If humans don't fight back, who will? That's not your burden to carry alone, Nina said gently. There are other ways to help. Other roles to fill. You don't have to turn yourself into a weapon. Ben watched another trainee take down 3 opponents in under 10 seconds. Does it change you? Permanently, I mean. Dr. Tanaka says no. The state is temporary. When the threat passes, your brain returns to normal. You're still you. But what about the things you do while you're in that state? Do you remember them? Do you have to live with them? Nina was quiet for a moment. Yes, you remember everything. And yes, you have to live with it. That's the price. Ben didn't show up for his training session that afternoon. Instead, he requested transfer to medical services. Nina approved it without comment. Not everyone was meant to be a warrior, and that was okay. Meanwhile, Grace had become something of a celebrity among Coalition species. Aliens who had been skeptical of humanity now saw her as a hero. She received thousands of messages from grateful civilians she had saved. Young aliens drew pictures of her. News networks wanted interviews. She hated all of it. They're treating me like some kind of superhero, she told Yuki during one of their regular counseling sessions. But I'm just a soldier who did her job. You're more than that to them, Yuki said. You represent hope. Proof that prey species and predator species can coexist, that predators can choose to protect instead of hunt. That's a lot of pressure. It is. How are you handling it? Grace shrugged. I don't sleep well anymore. When I close my eyes, I see the battle. I remember every shot I fired, every Dravix I killed. They had faces, Yuki. They had expressions. Some of them looked scared before they died. That's normal, Yuki said softly. It means you're still human. Still feeling. The day you stop caring about the lives you take is the day we should worry. But I can trigger the mode now, Grace said. Intentionally. I just think about those aliens in the shelter and something clicks. All the emotion turns off and I become this cold, calculating thing. Is that really human? That's survival instinct mixed with protective drive, Yuki explained. Every animal has some version of it. Humans just have a particularly sophisticated one. The fact that you can trigger it to protect others, not yourself, is what makes it special. Grace wasn't entirely convinced, but she continued her training. Other humans followed her example. Within 2 months, the Coalition had a human defense force of over 10,000 trained soldiers, all capable of entering Predator mode on command. Admiral Patricia Cole took command of the combined human Coalition forces. She was a career military officer, experienced and pragmatic. She understood the moral complexity of what they were creating. We're not building an army of killers, she told her staff during the first strategic planning session. We're building a shield. Our purpose is defense, not conquest. We protect Coalition space and nothing more. Is that clear? Captain Ryan Walsh nodded. He had been promoted to lead the Tactical Operations Division. Clear, Admiral. But we need to take the fight to the Dravix eventually. Pure defense won't win this war. One step at a time, Captain. First we stop their advance. Then we can discuss offensive operations. The Dravix had other plans. Their attacks intensified, hitting multiple systems simultaneously. Coalition casualties mounted. Alien civilians died by the millions. The prey species government struggled to respond. Their entire culture built on avoiding conflict rather than engaging in it. Human forces deployed across the front lines. They fought with controlled aggression, using tactics that baffled and frustrated the Dravix. Where the aliens expected frightened prey species, they found humans who refused to run, refused to surrender, refused to break. The turning point came at the Battle of Horizon Station. The Dravix committed a massive fleet to capture the strategically vital location. Coalition forces prepared to evacuate, expecting another defeat. Admiral Cole had different ideas. We hold this station. Ryan, I want you to organize the defense. Use whatever tactics you think necessary. Ryan assembled a force of 3,000 humans and convinced 50,000 Coalition soldiers to stay and fight. He organized them into mixed units, humans leading but aliens contributing according to their abilities. Some aliens provided technical support. Others helped with logistics. A few brave ones even joined the combat teams. When the Dravix arrived, they expected an easy victory. Instead, they faced coordinated resistance unlike anything they had encountered. Human soldiers in Predator mode led the defense, but they weren't alone. They had thousands of alien comrades supporting them, working together like a single organism. Counselor Vin participated in the battle, not as a fighter but as a coordinator. He watched humans move through the station corridors with deadly precision. But he also saw something else. Between combat engagements, those same humans checked on their alien teammates, shared their rations, offered encouragement, made jokes to ease tension. They could turn the Predator mode on and off, switch between warrior and friend in an instant. They're not just predators, Vin said to himself. They're people who can become predators when necessary. That's the difference. That the battle lasted 18 hours. The Dravix were eventually forced to retreat, suffering heavy losses. Coalition and human forces had held together, fought together, won together. News of the victory spread rapidly. Across the Coalition, species that had feared human predatory nature began to reconsider. Maybe humans were different. Maybe they could be trusted. But not everyone was convinced. Ambassador Tillin confronted Rachel after the battle. Your people killed 12,000 Dravix at Horizon Station. You celebrated this. You call it a victory. We stopped an invasion force from capturing a station with 3 million civilians, Rachel replied. We protected lives. Yes, that's a victory. You enjoyed it, Tillin accused. We saw the recordings. Some humans were smiling during the combat, smiling while they killed. Rachel felt a chill. She had seen those recordings too. Not all humans handled predator mode the same way. Some found it exhilarating. The power, the focus, the control. That worried her deeply. "I'll look into it," she promised. She brought her concerns to Yuki and Admiral Cole. They reviewed the combat footage together, analyzing the behavior of every human soldier. Most performed exactly as trained, professional, controlled, appropriate. But a small percentage showed signs of enjoying the violence. They took unnecessary risks, made aggressive moves that weren't tactically required, seemed to seek out combat rather than avoid it when possible. "We have a problem," Yuki said. "For most humans, predator mode is a tool, something they use when needed and put away when done. But for some, it's becoming addictive. They like how it feels. They're looking for excuses to activate it." "Recommendations?" Cole asked. "Psychological screening, regular evaluations, mandatory counseling for all combat personnel, and immediate removal from duty for anyone showing problematic behavior patterns." "Do it," Cole ordered. "We can't let this become what the aliens fear it might become." The screenings began immediately. 98% of human soldiers passed without issue. The remaining 2% were reassigned to non-combat roles, some protesting angrily that they were being punished for doing their jobs too well. Grace was asked to speak to them. She met with a group of 20 reassigned soldiers in a conference room. They looked at her with resentment and confusion. "You don't understand," one of them said. His name was Rick, and he had been an excellent soldier until his evaluations showed concerning patterns. "Predator mode makes me better, sharper, stronger. Why would I want to turn it off?" "Because we're not predators," Grace said firmly. "We're humans who can access predatory instincts when necessary to protect others. There's a difference. If you start seeking out violence, start enjoying the killing, you're not protecting anymore. You're hunting." "So what?" Rick challenged. "The Draviks are the enemy. They deserve whatever we give them." "Today they're the enemy," Grace said. "But what about tomorrow? What happens when the war ends? Will you be able to turn it off? Or will you need to find new enemies, new targets, new reasons to activate that mode you love so much?" Rick had no answer for that. Admiral Cole reviewed the tactical display showing Coalition space. Red markers indicated Draviks-controlled systems. Blue showed Coalition territory. There was far too much red. The enemy had taken 43 systems in 6 months despite human intervention. Something had to change. "We need to hit them at their source," Commander David Park said during the strategy meeting. He had been analyzing Dravik's tactics and supply lines for weeks. "Their homeworld is located here in the Outer Reach sector. If we can strike there, force them to defend their own territory, maybe we can negotiate a peace." "That's deep in enemy space," Ryan pointed out. "We'd be surrounded. No supply lines, no backup. If things go wrong, we're trapped. That's why I'm recommending a small, fast strike force," David continued. 3 ships, elite teams. Get in, hit military targets, demonstrate we're not helpless prey, then get out." Rachel spoke up from her seat. "The Council will never approve an offensive operation into Dravik's territory. They're barely comfortable with defensive actions." "Then we don't tell the Council until after it's done," Cole said quietly. Every head in the room turned to look at her. "I'll take full responsibility. If this works, I'm a hero. If it fails, I'm court-martialed. Either way, the Coalition doesn't bear the political burden." "Admiral, that's career suicide," Rachel protested. "Better my career than millions of lives," Cole replied. "David, prepare your mission plan." "Ryan, select your teams. We launch in 72 hours." The strike force departed from a remote outpost avoiding Coalition tracking systems. 3 human ships carrying 200 elite soldiers and support crew. Ryan commanded the lead vessel, the Pathfinder. Grace led one of the ground teams. The journey to Dravik space took 11 days through barely mapped hyperspace routes. When they emerged, they found a system heavily fortified but not expecting an attack. The Draviks had never been challenged in their own territory before. The human ships slipped past the outer defenses using stealth technology. They landed on Dravik's Prime's smallest moon, which hosted a major military command center. The plan was simple: destroy the command center, cripple their coordination, and escape before reinforcements arrived. Everything went wrong within the first hour. The command center was more heavily defended than intelligence suggested. Dravik soldiers swarmed the human teams. What should have been a quick strike turned into a desperate fighting retreat. Ryan's team got separated from Grace's group. Communications became unreliable. The carefully planned extraction window was missed. Grace found herself pinned down with 15 soldiers in a Dravik's bunker complex. They had killed the defenders and fortified the position, but enemy reinforcements were surrounding them. Her communication device crackled with static and broken transmissions. "All teams, this is Pathfinder." Ryan's voice came through weakly. "Mission is compromised. Fall back to extraction point beta. Repeat extraction point beta." Grace checked her tactical map. Extraction point beta was 3 kilometers away through hostile territory. Her team would never make it. Too many enemies. Too much open ground. "Pathfinder, this is Team 3, Grace transmitted. "We're cut off. Cannot reach extraction point. Enemy forces between our position and yours." Silence. Then Ryan's voice again, strained. "Copy that, Team 3. Hold your position. We'll come to you." "Negative," Grace said. "Too risky. You'll never get through. Save yourselves. Complete the mission." More silence. Grace knew Ryan was running calculations, weighing options, trying to find a way to save everyone. That was human nature. Pack animals never left pack members behind, but this time they might have to. The Dravik's assault on Grace's position intensified. Wave after wave of soldiers attacked the bunker. Grace and her team entered predator mode, defending with mechanical efficiency. But they were running low on ammunition, running out of time. One of her soldiers, a young man named Tom, took a hit. The Dravik's weapon punched through his armor and he went down hard. Grace dragged him into cover, saw the injury, knew it was fatal. Tom had minutes at best. "Sorry, Lieutenant," Tom gasped. "Guess I'm not making it home." "Don't talk like that," Grace said, though she knew he was right. "Just hold on. Help is coming." Tom smiled weakly. "You're a terrible liar." He coughed, blood on his lips. "Tell my family I died protecting people. That matters to me. That it wasn't just killing. It was protecting." "I'll tell them," Grace promised. Tom died 30 seconds later. Grace felt something crack inside her chest. The predator mode shifted. The cold calculation remained. But now it was mixed with something raw and hot. Anger, grief, determination. The Dravik's were going to pay for this. She led her team in a counterattack that was both brilliant and brutal. They fought their way out of the bunker, moving toward extraction point beta through sheer force and tactical genius. Grace seemed to sense enemy positions before seeing them. She used the terrain, the shadows, the chaos of battle itself as weapons. They reached the extraction point to find Ryan and his teams engaged in a desperate holding action. The Pathfinder was under fire from Dravik's artillery. The other 2 ships had already been destroyed. They were down to 1 vessel and less than 100 survivors. "About time you showed up," Ryan said when Grace's team arrived. Despite the situation, he managed a brief smile. "Thought we might have to leave without you." "You would never," Grace said. "Not your style." "True," Ryan admitted. "Now let's get out of here before that stops being a choice." But the Dravik's had other plans. As the human survivors boarded the Pathfinder, enemy reinforcements arrived in overwhelming numbers. A massive Dravik's commander emerged from a transport towering over his soldiers. He pointed at the humans and gave orders in his harsh language. The Pathfinder's engines fired, preparing for liftoff. Dravik's soldiers rushed forward. Ryan stood at the boarding ramp, providing covering fire. Grace was beside him, both of them in full predator mode, buying seconds for their people to escape. Then the Dravik's commander moved with shocking speed. He covered the distance to Ryan in a blur, knocked his weapon away and grabbed him by the throat. Ryan was lifted off the ground, armor and all. The commander was incredibly strong. Grace didn't hesitate. She launched herself at the commander, hitting him at full force. They went down together, rolling across the landing pad. The commander dropped Ryan and focused on Grace, recognizing her as a threat. They fought hand to hand, both warriors operating at the peak of their abilities. The commander was larger and stronger. Grace was faster and more tactical. The battle was brutal and personal. Around them, the firefight continued. The Pathfinder was taking damage. David's voice came over the radio, urgent and desperate. "Ryan, Grace, we're out of time. The ship's taking critical hits. We need to go now." Ryan had recovered his weapon. He could have boarded the ship to safety. Instead, he joined Grace in fighting the commander. 2 humans against 1 Dravik's, working together with perfect coordination. Pack tactics, the commander laughed even as he fought them. "Weak predators, corrupted by your prey allies. You could be strong, but you choose to be soft." We choose to be human, Ryan said, ducking under a massive fist. There's a difference. Grace found an opening and struck at the commander's helmet, cracking it. The commander roared and backhanded her, sending her flying. She hit the ground hard, her vision blurring. Ryan roared back, a very human sound of rage and protection. He attacked with renewed fury, forcing the commander backward. Grace struggled to her feet, saw Ryan fighting alone, saw the Pathfinder lifting off the ground because they were out of time. She made a decision. Triggered her communicator. David, get out of here. Don't wait for us. Grace, no, David's voice cracked. We don't leave people behind. That's an order. Save the others. We'll find another way. The Pathfinder hesitated in the air. Then slowly, painfully, it began to rise higher. David had made the impossible choice. Save the many or lose everyone trying to save two. Grace and Ryan watched their escape route disappear into the sky. They were stranded on Dravik's Prime, surrounded by thousands of enemy soldiers. The commander stood up, bleeding but alive. Now what, humans? He asked. You're trapped. No weapons, no backup. Just two prey species pretending to be hunters. Ryan looked at Grace. She looked back at him. They both smiled, and this time neither bothered to hide their teeth. Now, Grace said, you learn what happens when humans have nothing left to lose. They attacked together. The commander expected desperation. Instead, he faced something he had never encountered before. Two predators who fought not for territory or food or dominance, but for each other. Pack bonds taken to their ultimate extreme. The battle lasted 3 minutes and 17 seconds. When it ended, the Dravik's commander lay dead at their feet. Grace and Ryan stood back to back, surrounded by enemy soldiers who suddenly seemed less eager to attack. We came here to send a message, Ryan called out in Coalition Common, hoping some of them understood. Humans protect their own. We protect our allies, and we never stop. Ever. Tell your leaders that. The Dravik soldiers parted, letting them walk toward the captured command center. They had won respect through combat, the only language these warriors understood. Ryan and Grace disappeared into the facility, beginning what would become the longest 3 weeks of their lives. The news of the failed strike reached Coalition Central within hours. 200 human soldiers presumed dead or captured, 3 ships destroyed, the mission a complete disaster. High Chancellor Breen convened an emergency session, and Admiral Cole stood before the council to face judgment. You authorized an unprovoked attack on Dravik's territory, Breen said, his feathers ruffled in agitation, without council approval. Without declaring your intentions, this is exactly the kind of predatory aggression we feared from your species. Cole stood at attention, accepting responsibility. The mission was mine. I gave the orders. Court-martial me if you must, but it needed to be done. Defensive actions weren't working. The Draviks needed to know they weren't safe in their own space. And now 2 of your finest officers are captured or dead, another counselor said. Was it worth it? Cole's jaw tightened. No. But I'd make the same decision again because sitting back and watching millions die wasn't an option. Ambassador Tillin spoke up. This is what we feared. Humans becoming too comfortable with violence, too willing to take aggressive action. Perhaps this proves that predators cannot truly integrate with prey species. Rachel stood to defend Cole. With respect, this proves humans are willing to sacrifice themselves for the coalition. Every soldier on that mission volunteered knowing the risks. They went into enemy territory not to conquer but to protect billions of lives. By killing, Tillin said. Yes, Rachel admitted. Sometimes protecting requires hard choices. But humans never forget the cost. We mourn our dead. We carry the weight of every life taken. That's what makes us different from true predators. The council debated for hours while 3 light years away, Ryan and Grace fought for survival. They had barricaded themselves in the command center, using captured Dravik's equipment to defend against constant attacks. Sleep became a luxury measured in minutes. Food was whatever they could scavenge. Their injuries accumulated, but they kept fighting. This is unsustainable, Ryan said during a brief lull in the attacks. They had been trapped for 9 days. We're running out of ammunition, out of supplies, out of options. Grace checked her tactical display. The Draviks are bringing in heavier weapons. Next assault will probably crack our defenses. We could surrender, Ryan suggested without conviction. They'll torture us for information, Grace said, then kill us anyway. Draviks don't take prisoners, not from predator species. We're competition, not captives, Ryan nodded. Then we go down fighting. Not a bad way to go, all things considered. Grace looked at him. They had been through everything together over the past weeks. Shared danger. Shared pain. Shared those rare moments of dark humor that kept them sane. She realized she couldn't imagine better company for the end. You know what's funny? She said. I joined the military to see the galaxy, meet interesting aliens, learn about different cultures. Instead, I became really good at violence. That's not all you became, Ryan said. You saved 4,000 lives at New Terra, inspired a whole generation of humans to be better than their instincts, showed the galaxy that predators can choose to protect. That matters more than the fighting. Does it? Sometimes I wonder if Tillin is right. If we're just predators pretending to be civilized, we're both, Ryan said. That's the point. We have the capacity for violence, but we choose when and how to use it. Choice is what makes us human. Their philosophical discussion was interrupted by alarms. The Dreviks were launching their final assault. Massive war machines rolled toward the command center, supported by thousands of soldiers. Ryan and Grace prepared for the end, entering Predator mode one last time. Then something unexpected happened. Coalition warships dropped out of hyperspace above Dravik's prime. Not just a few, hundreds of them. The largest fleet ever assembled in Coalition history, and leading them was Admiral Cole aboard a new flagship. The Dravik's forces were caught completely off guard. The Coalition fleet opened fire with devastating precision, targeting military installations across the moon. Dropships descended, deploying troops, not just humans but aliens too. Thousands of Coalition soldiers had come to rescue their comrades. Counselor Vin led one of the ground teams. He had insisted on participating despite having no combat training. If humans will risk everything to protect us, he had told the Admiral, then we must do the same for them. The rescue force fought through Dravik's defenders to reach the command center. When they breached the doors, they found Ryan and Grace still fighting, both wounded, but unbowed. About time, Grace said when she saw Vin. We were starting to think you forgot about us. Humans never leave pack members behind, Vin said, using the term he had learned. We learned that from you. The evacuation proceeded under fire. Human soldiers in Predator mode secured the perimeter, while alien forces provided technical support and medical care. The cooperation was seamless. They had trained together, fought together, trusted each other. As the rescue ships lifted off, Dravik's warships arrived to defend their homeworld. The Coalition fleet engaged them in the largest space battle of the war. It was brutal and costly, but the Coalition forces held together. Human tactical expertise combined with alien technical capabilities proved devastating. The Dravik's commander who had fought Grace watched from a command ship as his forces were systematically defeated. He contacted the Coalition fleet directly, demanding to speak with human leadership. Admiral Cole took the call. The Dravik's commander appeared on screen, his face unreadable to human eyes but his body language suggesting respect. You came for 2 soldiers, the commander said. Sacrifice ships and warriors for 2 individuals. This is not rational predator behavior. No, Cole agreed. It's human behavior. We protect our pack, all of them, always. Your pack includes prey species, the commander observed. Weak creatures that should be food, not allies. Those weak creatures built a civilization spanning 12,000 worlds, Cole said. They created art, science, philosophy. They welcomed humanity despite their fears. They became our friends, and humans defend their friends. Friends, the commander repeated the word like it was foreign. Draviks have no friends, only territory and resources. We are stronger. You were stronger, Cole corrected, but you're losing this war, not because we're better predators, but because we're not just predators. We're people who can work together, share resources, trust each other. That's something you'll never understand. The transmission ended. The Dravik's fleet withdrew, their homeworld's defenses in ruins. It wasn't total victory, but it was a turning point. The Draviks had learned that the Coalition was no longer defenseless prey. The rescue fleet returned to Coalition space as heroes. The Council, which had been debating Cole's court-martial, instead gave her a commendation. Even Tillin admitted that the mission, while reckless, had achieved its goal. The Draviks have agreed to peace negotiations, Breen announced at the council meeting. They wish to discuss territorial boundaries and non-aggression agreements. After seeing what happened at their homeworld, they no longer consider us easy targets. So we won? Rachel asked. We survived, Breen corrected. And we proved something important. Prey species and predator species can coexist, can fight together, can trust each other. This changes everything we thought we knew about galactic politics. The formal integration of humans into the coalition was finalized 3 months later. No longer probationary members, humans gained full rights and responsibilities. In exchange, human military forces became the coalition's primary defense force, with Admiral Cole appointed as the first supreme commander of coalition security. Grace was promoted and given command of a joint human-alien unit. She spent her time training both species to work together, teaching humans to control their predator instincts and teaching aliens to overcome their prey instincts. It was slow, difficult work, but it mattered. Ryan became the coalition's ambassador to the Draviks. He worked on the peace negotiations, using his understanding of predator psychology to find common ground. The Draviks respected him and slowly, carefully, relations improved. Dr. Yuki continued her research into predator mode, publishing papers that revolutionized xenopsychology. She found that all species had hidden capabilities that could be accessed under the right circumstances. Humans just happened to have particularly useful ones for the current crisis. Private Ben Torres, who had refused combat training, became head of Coalition Medical Services. He saved more lives through his work than most soldiers did through combat. He proved that not all humans needed to be warriors. Some could serve by healing instead. 1 year after the Battle of Dravik's Prime, Grace stood on a balcony overlooking New Terra's capital. The city had been rebuilt, stronger than before. Humans and aliens walked the streets together. Children of multiple species played in the parks without supervision. It had become normal. Counselor Vin joined her, his insectoid form no longer startling to her eyes. Thinking deep thoughts? He asked. Thinking about how far we've come, Grace said. A year ago, aliens were terrified of humans. Now we're neighbors, friends. You proved we had nothing to fear, Vin said. Or rather, you proved that what we feared was also what we needed. Protectors, guardians. Someone willing to do the difficult things so the rest of us don't have to. That's a heavy burden, Grace said. It is, Vin agreed. But you don't carry it alone. We're learning from you, becoming braver, more willing to defend ourselves. You're not just protecting us. You're teaching us to be stronger. Grace smiled, careful as always to keep her teeth covered. Old habits. And you're teaching us to be gentler, to think before we act, to consider consequences. We're learning from each other. That's what friendship means, Vin said. Growing together. Down in the city, a human child and a Quarian child ran past, chasing each other in some game only they understood. The Quarian's parents watched calmly, no longer afraid that the human might accidentally trigger predatory instincts. The human's parents chatted with them, discussing the mundane concerns of daily life, schools and weather and community events. It was ordinary, peaceful, normal. High Chancellor Breen gave his annual address to the coalition that evening. His speech was broadcast across 12,000 worlds, reaching trillions of citizens from 48 member species. 1 year ago we faced extinction, Breen said. The Draviks threatened everything we had built over millennia. We were saved by an unlikely alliance with a species that terrified us, humans. With their predatory heritage and capacity for violence, we feared they would destroy us. Instead, they defended us. Today I stand before you to make an announcement. Humanity has proven themselves not just as allies, but as essential members of our coalition. They bring strengths we never knew we needed. Yes, they are predators. Yes, they have capacity for violence, but they choose when and how to use that capacity. They direct it toward protection, not conquest. Toward saving lives, not taking them. We invited shepherds to protect the flock. We should not be surprised when they bare their teeth at wolves. That is not a flaw in their nature. It is the very thing that makes them valuable. Moving forward, the coalition will integrate human tactical thinking into all our defensive strategies. We will train our own forces to work alongside human units. We will learn from their strengths while they learn from ours. Together we are greater than the sum of our parts. Some of you still fear humans. You see their forward-facing eyes, their sharp teeth, their capacity for violence. I understand that fear. It is instinctive. But I challenge you to look deeper. See their loyalty, their compassion, their unwavering commitment to protecting those weaker than themselves. See their choice to be more than their biology demands. Humans have a saying, "We are not defined by our nature but by our choices." Today, the coalition chooses trust, chooses friendship, chooses hope, and we do so knowing that when danger comes we have allies who will stand beside us, who will fight for us, who will never abandon us. Welcome, humanity. Welcome to your full place among the stars. The speech ended. Across the coalition, reactions were mixed but trending positive. Fear was being replaced by understanding, suspicion by trust. It would take time, perhaps generations, but the foundation had been laid. Grace watched the speech from her quarters. When it ended, she finally allowed herself to cry. Not from sadness, but from relief. They had done it. Against all odds, despite all fears, humans had found their place in a galaxy that should have rejected them. She thought about all the soldiers who had died making this possible, Tom and hundreds of others. They had sacrificed themselves protecting people they barely knew, fighting for species that weren't even their own. That was the human way. That was what made Predator Mode something more than just violence. It was protection. It was love. It was the conscious choice to use strength in service of others. Her communicator buzzed. A message from Ryan. Family dinner tonight. Your presence is required, not requested. We're celebrating. Grace smiled and responded, be there in 20 minutes. Family. That word meant something different now. It included humans and aliens, soldiers and civilians, former enemies and current friends. They were all pack, all under human protection, and humans took that responsibility seriously. As Grace headed out to join her extended family, she felt the Predator Mode still available in the back of her mind. Ready if needed, but dormant for now. She didn't need it tonight. Tonight was for celebrating peace, friendship, and the future they were building together. Somewhere in the darkness of space, threats still existed, dangers that would eventually require humanity's unique capabilities. But for now, the galaxy was safe. The coalition was strong, and humans had proven what they truly were. Not monsters, not killers, not simple predators driven by instinct. Just people. People who could be fierce when necessary, gentle when possible, and always loyal to their pack. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy. That was what made them special. The ability to choose.